It started with a whisper, a flicker in the deep black. For 3 days, astronomers at the Mauna Kea Observatory had been tracking an anomaly. Not a comet, not an asteroid. It was a cluster of objects, perfectly synchronized, moving with a purpose that defied natural law. They called it the swarm. The data was classified. Of course, panic is a disease, and the world's governments weren't ready for a pandemic. They thought they had time. They were wrong. On the 4th day, the whispers became a roar. The swarm didn't decelerate as it approached Earth. It simply arrived. In one terrifying, silent instant, the objects positioned themselves in a perfect geostationary grid above every major city on the planet. From New York to Tokyo, London to Johannesburg, the skies went dark at noon. I was in Chicago, heading to a meeting I no longer remember. The first thing I noticed wasn't the shadow, but the silence. The city's constant hum just stopped. Car engines died. Cell phones went black. The electronic heartbeat of a civilization flatlined. Then we looked up. It was immense. A perfectly smooth obsidian craft that blotted out the sun. It wasn't just big. It was a statement of power, a monument to our own insignificance. There were no lights, no engines, no sound. It just hung there, a void in the sky. Panic didn't erupt immediately. It was replaced by a collective, breathless awe. People poured out of their silent cars and dark buildings, phones held up uselessly, their faces a mixture of terror and wonder. We stood there for what felt like an eternity, a planet of 2 billion statues staring at our new gods. Then, the silence was broken. It wasn't a bang or an explosion. It was a sound that seemed to come from inside our own heads. A low, resonant hum that vibrated through bone and concrete alike. It was a language we couldn't understand, but a message that was terrifyingly clear. We are here. The first response came from the military. Jets scrambled from air bases, their engines the only sound in a dead world. We watched them climb, silver needles against the impossible black of the ship. They looked like toys. They fired their missiles, streaks of white smoke arcing towards the silent giant. The missiles didn't explode. They simply vanished, absorbed into the ship's surface without a ripple, like stones thrown into a bottomless lake. The jets themselves didn't fare much better. As they got closer, they just fell out of the sky, tumbling end over end like discarded playthings. No fire, no explosions. They just stopped working. That's when the true panic began. The AO was gone, replaced by the primal animal fear of a predator. The crowd broke. People screamed, trampling each other in a desperate, futile stampede to get where there was nowhere to go. The city was a cage, and the bars were in the sky. I ran with them, carried by a tide of hysteria. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to move. I saw a woman fall, her hand outstretched, but the crowd just flowed over her. I saw a man on his knees, praying to a sky that was no longer his. The city, a great testament to human achievement, was dissolving into chaos. Then the hum changed. It deepened, and a single, pure beam of white light descended from the center of the ship. It wasn't a weapon, not in the way we understood it. It didn't burn or destroy. It just touched. It touched the top of the Willis Tower, and the steel and glass structure began to disassemble itself. Not crumble or fall, but deconstruct. Girders floated apart, windows separated into neat stacks, and the entire building was drawn up into the light, piece by piece, like a child taking apart a Lego set. It was terrifyingly precise, impossibly silent. They weren't here to fight us. They weren't here to conquer us. They were here to harvest. We weren't an enemy. We were a resource. Our cities were their quarries, our planet their raw material. Another beam of light appeared, and another. They moved with methodical grace across the city, deconstructing everything we had ever built. Bridges unraveled into streams of steel. Skyscrapers turned into floating clouds of concrete and glass. The symphony of destruction was conducted in absolute silence, save for the screams of the ants scurrying below. I found shelter in a subway entrance, huddled with a few dozen other terrified souls. We could feel the vibrations as the city above us was unmade. The lights were out, the darkness absolute, broken only by the intermittent, blinding white flashes from above. A little girl was crying, her mother trying to shush her, whispering that everything would be all right. but we all knew it was a lie. After hours that felt like days, the vibrations stopped. The flashes of light ceased. A new kind of silence fell, a heavy, empty silence. Cautiously, a few of us crept up the stairs. The sky was blue again. The sun was shining. The ship was gone, but so was Chicago, where a skyline once clawed at the clouds. There was now just ground, flat, scoured earth. A few skeletal remains of the deepest foundations were all that was left. The streets, the buildings, the parks, the people who hadn't made it underground, all gone, erased. We were the survivors. The few who had been underground. We stood on the edge of a wound in the earth, looking out at a landscape we didn't recognize. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A single garbled emergency broadcast managed to get through. Static-filled voices, reports from other cities. It was the same everywhere. London, Moscow, Beijing, erased. The broadcast cut out, replaced by that same mind-numbing hum from before. I looked up and I saw it. It wasn't a single ship this time. The sky was filled with them, an infinite fleet stretching to every horizon. They hadn't left. They had just finished the first phase. This wasn't an invasion, it was a demolition, and humanity's extinction was just part of the site cleanup. The hum grew louder, and from the belly of every ship, a single beam of light began to descend, not on the empty cities, but on the green spaces between them. The forests, the mountains, the oceans, they had taken our hives. Now, they were coming for the rest of the planet, and we, the last remnants, could only stand and watch as our world was taken apart, piece by piece. The age of man was over. The age of the harvesters had begun.